Hey guys, this is Chris with Cowdog, and today I'm going to show you how to make a shooting board out of scrap wood. Now, for those of you who don't know what a shooting board is for, it's so that you can squarely trim end grain and sneak up on a cut using a hand plane, such as this low-angle jack plane. This is a great way to cut close to the line and then approach to get a perfect fit, rather than taking it over to the table saw and perhaps overcutting your board.
For starters, I've got some scrap 3/4 ply and 1/2 inch MDF, and I'm measuring on the ply with the approximate depth of my jack plane. Then I'm going to do a glue up with some Titebond Quick and Thick and some Titebond 2 and set the MDF to the line. Here I'm just making sure everything's square, and I'm using these little band clamps. I just released a video on these, so if you want to see that, I'm going to link it up here in the corner. Then on the table saw, I'm just ripping off the extra MDF. I'm measuring the distance to the plane mouth because I'm going to do a slight rabbet that's going to leave that amount remaining, and this is going to keep the plane from eating away at the board over time. And then I'm striking a square line to line up my fence, which is made of some scrap white oak. And then I went about drilling these pilot holes for a hex cap screw backwards, working from small to large, which created problems as far as tear out. We'll go deep on why that's bad later when I redo this step. I want a slightly larger elongated slot, so I'm drilling a couple holes around that pilot hole, and then I'm going to use a chisel to mortise out the slot. This allows for me to loosen the bolt and adjust the fence if the plane starts wearing it away, or if it ever ends up a smidge out of square. Also, if you have a domino, this would be a great time to use a device that drills specifically elongated slots. For assembly, I'm coming up through the bottom with the cap screw and then using a wing nut and fender washer to tighten from the top, being sure to align for square. Then I needed a bench hook, so with some glue on the ply, I countersunk and screwed onto the end opposite the fence. And so that's pretty much the quick and dirty version. I waxed up my planes and gave it a whirl. I also found out this was good for edge jointing, so I tried that as well, and it works just fine.
So here we are with the first iteration of the shooting board, and there are a couple issues, and we're going to show you how to fix them. For starters, the bed is kind of long, and this is actually a little bit longer than my workbench surface. Now what this is causing is when I'm actually using the shooting board, I'm constantly reaching across the length of my workbench. And it's not the most comfortable way to do this, and it's causing a little bit of issues as far as reach in my back. The way that we fix this is by shortening the bed of the board and moving this fence back. And that's going to give me the opportunity to fix these unsightly boreholes that we were dealing with earlier. So I'll be able to do this the right way, move the fence back to an appropriate position, and also just have a much more comfortable shooting board. Alright, so let's get to work. So I'm going to start working here on the underside of the board, and the way that I'm going to have to map this out is I'm using my fence as a little bit of a guide so I can have these slot holes lined up on the right side, and I'm just going to guesstimate about that center point, use my square here, and then I'm just going to kind of feel it out. The idea of having the elongated holes is so that I can adjust this fence laterally as well as front to back if necessary. So I'm just going to come in here and try to pop a relatively centralized hole. And of course, this is not deep enough. So since my punch doesn't fit all the way down, and I'm not going to be able to get that good pop that I need, I'm just going to use a brad point bit down the middle. Try to guesstimate, and I'm just going to take my hammer, tap it. There's enough wiggle room here where I don't really have to be perfect. I just need to be able to make a couple marks. Now, something I didn't do on this first iteration of the shooting board is to actually use washers on the underside, so that way these socket caps can have a little bit of a dispersion of that force once it gets tightened in. I don't run the risk of having the actual socket cap just bust straight through the board. We're going to use a 1-inch Forstner bit, line it up, and fire. And that should be pretty perfect right there. I'm gonna just go a little smidge deeper. Just because I know that the washer has a little bit of thickness to it, so I don't want this head of the socket cap to be proud of the surface. So now I've switched out to a 5/16 brad point bit, and the Forstner bit, just from the way Forstner bits naturally are, have this little brad point that's in the middle, and that is going to help me line up to keep myself centered in the actual hole. I've also got a scrap board under here to try to help prevent blowout, but we'll see how well that works. And that's not too bad. That's pretty much what we want. And for the fence, I've actually upgraded a bit using a larger fender washer, and I've also got a wing nut driver that is going to help lock these into place. I'm going to set this up kind of to the back of the holes on the fence. Everything looking nice and square. We're just going to lock this in. So let's do it. Let's try this sucker out. This board is a little bit out. And that is dead square. Dead square. Alright guys, that's all she wrote for this one. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. That really helps me out a ton. Also, be sure to be on the lookout for this and other shop projects that are going to be linked in future videos as well. You'll also get to see some of these projects a little more in action in some of my larger project videos. As always, thanks for watching and see you next time. So a couple folks have asked me to do some bourbon and whiskey reviews at the end of my videos, and I'm happy to oblige. Always good for a dram or two. So this is going to be essentially a monthly segment. If you guys have any suggestions as to brands or anything you'd like me to try out, feel free. There's a Total Wine right around the corner. This month I'm drinking Bulleit Bourbon by the Bulleit Distributing Company out of Louisville, Kentucky. This is a very nice, smooth bourbon, very low on the chew, not super smoky, and it's a great mixer, so it's a real easy sort of gateway into the bourbon world, if you will. It's a real smooth flavor, and it actually mixes really well, so if you're a fan of old fashions, this is definitely the bourbon for you. Thanks for tuning in, and once again, see you next time here at Catwalk Craftworks.